From a distance, the place appeared as if a vast expanse of floating objects had gathered together, forming a sea of floating matter so dense that its end was nowhere to be seen. The colors were a dull mix of green and red, the monotonous hues that stretched across the entire sea of floating matter, filling the entire area. Every 5,000 years, this sea of floating matter would emit a strange force. During the ripples of this power, numerous peculiar items in the starry sky would be trapped and absorbed by it. These peculiar items included skeletal remains, magical artifacts, and anything imaginable. There was no limit to what could be found. It was like a treasure trove, absorbing something every 5,000 years but never releasing anything. If one wished to seek treasure, they could only enter and search for it. No one knew how this place came into being. It was said that it had existed since the appearance of Destiny Star, its origins lost in the annals of time. Some rumors suggested that this was once the private celestial mansion of a powerful immortal lord from the immortal realm, but due to the collapse of the immortal realm, this place became mysteriously entangled, eventually transforming into what appeared to be the Return Ruins. In reality, this Return Ruins was merely a protective spell. It was believed that if one with the right opportunity entered, they could restore the mansion to its original form. Other rumors said that this place was actually a passageway connecting to an unknown space, a gateway to a world that transcended the immortal realm. Whatever the truth, there were countless speculations, many of which sounded convincing, as if backed by solid evidence. This mysterious sea, whose origins remained unknown, was located in the eastern part of Destiny Star. Over time, it became known as the Eastern Sea of Destiny. On the day Destiny Star's chosen one, Tian Yunzi, attained the Tao, he invited a few close friends, including the sword venerable Ling Tianhou before their falling out, to explore the Eastern Sea 3 times. Of these 3 explorations, the first 2 returned empty-handed. It was only the final expedition where the group entered, but when they emerged, fewer than half of them returned. Since then, sword venerable Ling Tianhou and Tian Yunzi split ways, and for many years, neither of them spoke about what happened during the 3rd expedition in the Eastern Sea. However, after that, Tian Yunzi left a single remark: there are ancient demons within the Eastern Sea. From now on, this place will be one of the forbidden zones of Destiny Star, the gate of Eastern Sea demon spirits. The term ancient demon spread from that moment and became known to countless people. Even the Cultivation Alliance had sent people to inspect the gate of Eastern Sea demon spirits, but Tian Yunzi, sword venerable Ling Tianhou, and other powerful old monsters maintained a united stance. No outsiders were allowed to enter. This place is a forbidden zone of Destiny Star. After a long period, the gate of Eastern Sea demon spirits naturally became a place of confinement for Destiny Star. Though not many such mysterious places existed in the starry sky, there were certainly enough for the Cultivation Alliance to avoid conflict with Destiny Star's cultivators over just one. They deemed it not worth the risk. Every time the gate of Eastern Sea demon spirits opens, it is a major event for Destiny Star. When it opens, a tidal phenomenon will unfold, lasting for several months. This phenomenon is caused by the strange force within the Eastern Sea demon spirits, and during this time, countless precious treasures, magical techniques, demon beast remains, and bizarre items seem to be swallowed, absorbed from all directions into the Eastern Sea. Whenever the gate opens, almost all the powerful old monsters from outside Destiny Star send their disciples. Although the journey is filled with danger, it is a once-in-5000 years opportunity. Missing it would be a great loss, so they take the risk. The number of those who enter the Eastern Sea Demon Spirits Gate is large, often numbering in the hundreds or even thousands. The lowest cultivation level of these adventurers is typically the infant metamorphosis stage, and some have just begun to grasp the concepts of yin-yang and void reality. However, there is a strict limitation on cultivation level. Those who are at or above the threshold of the Tao Ascendant are never allowed to enter. After all, this place is intended for disciples of various sects, and even when the gate opens, only half of it is accessible, reducing the dangers inside to some extent. But there are no absolutes in the world. It all depends on whether anything truly extraordinary appears during the tidal phenomenon. If such a rare item is discovered, the situation within the Eastern Sea Demon Spirits Gate will become a lot more lively. As of now, there are only 5 days left until the opening of the Eastern Sea Demon Spirits Gate. However, in the void beyond the East Sea, countless cultivators had already gathered. These cultivators were all those preparing to enter, dressed in various types of Taoist robes. Though they intermingled, the paths were clearly delineated, with disciples from each sect standing together. creating a lively scene. As time passed, more and more cultivators arrived from beyond the East Sea. Occasionally, some old monsters who had not shown their faces for a long time arrived with their disciples. Whenever such figures appeared, they would cause a stir, and most of the cultivators would immediately step aside to give them space. On this day, in the void beyond the East Sea, a red glow almost enveloped the entire starry sky. At the same time, a strong scent of blood immediately spread through the surroundings, turning the area into a blood-red world. The Bloodstar Ancestor. As soon as the blood odor appeared, someone immediately recognized the identity of the person. Instantly, the noise around them died down. Within the vast expanse of blood-red light, a massive blood-colored jade stone slowly floated from the starry sky. Sitting atop this jade stone was a woman. Her eyes were like phoenixes, her eyebrows sharp, and she wore a white robe. Compared to the blood jade she sat upon, she created a striking visual contrast. Though she sat cross-legged, her slender figure was evident. She had a delicate, jade-like face with crystal-clear skin, a finely sculpted nose, and especially those deep phoenix eyes, which shimmered with the brilliance of the morning sun on water. Yet, beneath that beauty hid a chilling depth. Anyone who fell into those eyes would find themselves trapped in an irreversible fate. As the blood jade continued its flight, all the cultivators in its path stepped aside, allowing the woman to reach a relatively empty area beyond the East Sea demon spirits. There, she stopped. She remained silent as the jade came to a halt. Once it did, she closed her eyes and sat in meditation on the spot. The blood ancestor's daughter, Yao Shishiwei. A cultivator immediately recognized her. Yao Xinghai, the blood ancestor, was a well-known figure beyond the East Sea, a powerful and legendary monster. He had challenged Tian Yunzi 7 times, and although he failed every time, his strength only grew. His 7th battle with Tian Yunzi, in particular, displayed his astonishing blood arts. Yao Xinghai had occupied a star outside the Destiny Star, using it to cultivate his demonic arts by draining blood from the natives he controlled. This man never took disciples in his life, except for his daughter. She was his treasured gem, to whom he passed on all his teachings, even going so far as to change her fate and grant her divine abilities. Father and daughter lived on the Bloodstar, rarely interacting with outsiders. But the more secluded they were, the more others feared them. For now, let's leave their affairs aside. At this moment, on the Earth Star, one of the 5 auxiliary stars outside the Destiny Star, near the largest teleportation array of the Xian Yuan sect, Xian Yuan sect's vice sect leader, Su Yushan, stood quietly. Holding an emerald jade fan in his hand, he absent-mindedly tapped it while occasionally glancing into the distance. His expression was calm, though. Behind him were 3 individuals, old men, each with white hair. They wore simple clothing, yet their presence emitted a formidable aura that seemed to make the surrounding air thin. In the outer circle, hundreds of disciples from the Xian Yuan sect sat at various points around the teleportation array, meditating in silence. At a moment's notice, they would release their spiritual energy and activate the array in conjunction with the jade within. Su Yushan tapped his emerald fan lightly, his expression calm, never showing any impatience. Soon, a pink mist appeared rapidly in the distance. Su Yushan furrowed his brow, an expression of helplessness in his eyes. He closed his fan and looked toward the source of the pink mist in the sky. The pink light approached at incredible speed, and in an instant, it hovered nearby before descending in a spiral, landing about 10 paces from Su Yushan. It transformed into a young woman who appeared to be in her early 20s. The woman was dressed in a pink robe, her skin like crystal, translucent and smooth. She was stunning, standing there like a flawless jade statue. An enchanting fragrance seemed to surround her, reminiscent of a flower blooming in a secluded valley, making anyone who gazed upon her feel intoxicated. "Brother, you promised me that as long as I catch up, you'd let me go." The young woman pouted and quickly said. Su Yushan's eyes widened in shock, and he barked, "Nonsense. With your cultivation level, you cannot go to the East Sea demon spirits. Though your father is in seclusion, he has already issued orders. You're not allowed to go. Xian Yi, take her back to the sect." At that moment, one of the elderly men standing behind Su Yushan stepped forward and appeared beside the young woman. He clasped his hands and said, "Miss, please do not make it difficult for Xian Yi." The young woman snorted and didn't even glance at Xian Yi. Her gaze was fixed on Su Yushan as she said, "Mother promised." Sun Junshan was about to speak when his expression suddenly shifted. He no longer paid attention to the young woman, but instead looked into the distant horizon, a faint smile appearing at the corner of his mouth. "Brother Wang, I've been waiting for you for quite a while." Some things delayed me on the road. I didn't expect Brother Sun to be waiting here for me. Wang Lin replied with a slight smile, cupping his fist in greeting. Sun Junshan laughed heartily and said, "No problem. Originally, I was supposed to leave for the East Sea Demon Spirit Gate yesterday, but after hearing that Brother Wang is the person chosen by Senior Tian Yunzi, I thought it over and decided to wait a few days. We can travel together, wouldn't that be great?" Wang Lin smiled gently and nodded. "Thank you." He then scanned the people around Sun Yushan, his gaze lingering briefly. Sun Junshan smiled and explained, "These three are elders from my Xin Yuan sect. They are responsible for my safety on this journey. After all, I don't have the cultivation level of Brother Wang, and the East Sea trip is too dangerous. Sigh, if it weren't for my father insisting, I wouldn't go there." Wang Lin chuckled softly. Brother Sun is quite interesting. Meanwhile, the young woman in the pink dress glanced at Wang Lin, her eyes suddenly flashing with a hint of surprise. Sun Yunshan pointed to the woman beside him and said, "Brother Wang, this is my younger sister, Sun Runan." He then turned to the young woman and, with a stern look in his eyes, shouted, "This is Wang Lin, Senior Tian Yunzi's direct disciple. You should greet him." Sun Runan wrinkled her nose, giving Wang Lin a slight bow. Her voice, as clear as a lark, said, "Runan greets Big Brother Wang." Wang Lin nodded with a smile but didn't linger on her. His gaze instead focused on the formation. Sun Yunshan, quick-witted as always, understood Wang Lin's intentions. "Brother Wang, the time is getting late. Shall we go?" Wang Lin nodded, and the two of them stepped forward, walking toward the center of the formation in unison. "Xianyi, come back," Sun Junshan said calmly, without turning around. Xianyi didn't say a word, immediately turning and walking toward the formation. The other two elders also stepped into the formation. Soon, only the young woman in pink remained outside. She stamped her foot, her voice raised in a pout, calling out to Sun Junshan, "Brother, just let me go with you." "No." Sun Junshan replied firmly without hesitation. "Activate the formation." At a low command, hundreds of disciples outside the formation opened their eyes simultaneously, channeling their spiritual energy. A tremendous amount of energy surged from their bodies and merged into the formation. This was no ordinary formation, but one from the starry sky. The amount of spirit stones and immortal jade needed to activate it was immense. The formation emitted a deep, rumbling hum, and a vast force poured out from within, creating a massive shockwave that spread outward. The disciples, their clothes flapping wildly in the wind, were all pale-faced but remained motionless. Moments later, a 100-foot-long rainbow suddenly shot up from the formation, piercing the sky. Light rings expanded outward, gradually covering nearly half of the sky above Earth's star. The wave continued for about half an incense stick's time before it slowly dissipated. However, at the very moment the rainbow shot into the sky, the young woman standing outside the formation flashed a triumphant expression. She quickly retrieved a jade slip from her storage pouch, her eyes gleaming with mischief. "Humph, if you won't let me go, I'll follow you secretly. Father's teleportation jade slip will let me catch up with you. With this, I can go with you, and maybe I'll find some treasure in the East Sea demon spirits." As soon as the jade slip appeared in her hand, it immediately emitted a white glow that enveloped her. In the blink of an eye, her figure transformed into a thin white thread, shooting up into the sky and merging with the rainbow, vanishing from sight. To the east of Destiny Star, at the East Sea Demon Spirit Gate. Only 3 days remained until the gate would open. The number of cultivators surrounding the area had already swelled to the tens of thousands. However, not all of them were there to enter. The majority had come to witness the tidal phenomenon. After all, such a sight only occurred once every 5,000 years, and for many cultivators, this might be the only chance in their lifetime, or even eternity. If one could not transcend the dual realms of yin and yang, their lifespan would be forever limited, unable to break the first threshold, and unable to live for 5,000 years. At the East Sea Demon Spirit Gate, many old monsters who rarely appeared in the world had also arrived. Some came in person, others sent disciples, but each time one of them appeared, they forcefully claimed a spot, exuding immense dominance. The more this was the case, the fewer dared to provoke them. Fortunately, these people were all familiar with each other, so even though they held different positions, there was rarely any friction between them. Take the current situation for example. The Blood Ancestor's daughter, Yao Shishue, was surrounded by a distance of 100 meters, and no one dared to step any closer. On this day, Only 2 days remained before the opening of the East Sea Demon Spirit Gate. In the starry sky above, a sudden burst of light appeared, resembling countless stars twinkling in the heavens. The number of these light points was overwhelming, and when they clustered together, it seemed as if all the stars in the void were rushing toward this spot. The mere radiance of these lights immediately gave rise to an unimaginable pressure, like a mighty storm howling through the air. At this moment, except for a few renowned old monsters, all the cultivators' expressions changed slightly. Even Yao Shishue, the blood ancestor's daughter, opened her eyes and looked toward the endless stream of crystalline light rushing from the void. Sword Venerable, Yao Shishue whispered softly. The crystalline light that had been rushing toward them in the distance quickly transformed into ancient swords, each a sword chi imbued with a sense of heavenly might. As they neared, all the cultivators outside the East Sea Demon Spirit Gate stepped aside to make way. This scene was more grandiose than any elder's arrival. Among the sea of sword lights, a huge Kirin beast galloped through, with Sword Venerable Ling Tianhou sitting cross-legged on its back, his gaze like a piercing flame. Behind him, sword-shaped phantoms flickered violently, further enhancing his intimidating presence. Following Sword Venerable, there were 12 others. These 12 were all carrying massive, ancient swords on their backs, and on each sword, images of various demonic beasts materialized, forming the likeness of 12 different creatures. The 12 sword prodigies, someone in the crowd of cultivators immediately recognized them. Everyone on Destiny Star knew that Sword Venerable Ling Tianhou had only one rival, Tian Yunzi. Their conflict had lasted for countless years, and it still continued to this day. Although Sword Venerable had always been at a disadvantage, he never gave up and continued to oppose Tian Yunzi. While the 7 children of destiny from the Tian Yun sect had inherited celestial techniques, Ling Tianhou's 12 sword prodigies were protected by demon spirits. As Sword Venerable arrived, a large empty space appeared outside the East Sea Demon Spirit Gate. Within 100 miles, only Sword Venerable and his 12 sword prodigies stood. Ling Tianhou's face darkened. He hadn't intended to arrive so early, but the Demon Spirit Gate was extremely important to him. His gaze turned toward the floating sea in the distance, and a trace of nostalgia flashed in his eyes. Years ago, when he returned from the immortal realm, the sword soul had been relentlessly entwining him. What he hadn't expected was the terrifying power of this sword soul, which had left him greatly shocked. In the end, he had lured the sword soul into the East Sea Demon Spirit and trapped it using a secret technique. This time, he intended to use the Once-in-5000-Years tidal phenomenon to pull the sword soul deep into the East Sea and make sure it would never return. This sword soul belongs to that lady monarch of the immortal realm. Though it's a powerful item, since I can't wield it, I will never let it fall into someone else's hands, especially that old scoundrel Tian Yunzi. Ling Tianhou snorted coldly, his face dark with anger. While Ling Tianhou was deep in thought, his expression suddenly shifted. He looked up toward the void, his eyes showing a trace of curiosity. Suddenly, a large cloud of sinister, cold energy appeared in the starry sky. The energy was a dark green, rapidly transforming into massive skulls, thousands of them. Some of these skulls even had traces of flesh still clinging to them. Among these skulls, there was one particularly huge, clearly the skull of an ancient ferocious beast. Seated on this immense, chilling bone was a middle-aged man. This man was shrouded in a deathly aura, making it impossible to discern his appearance. Around him, countless ghostly skulls flickered, forming an endless forest of bones. He charged forward relentlessly, breaking through the void, appearing in the 100-mile radius where no one dared approach, the spot where Sword Venerable Ling Tianhou was standing. Old friend Ling Tian, the middle-aged man, cloaked in deathly energy and sitting atop the giant beast's skull, called out in a raspy voice, laughing loudly. Sword Venerable Ling Tianhou smiled slightly and said, "Greedy wolf." Greedy wolf was none other than the individual who had attempted to devour ancient cultivators on Vermilion Birdstar to restore his cultivation, seeking to find traces of the heavenly tribulation and track down Wang Lin. This man was also one of the main culprits who had fought for Situnan's heaven-reversing pearl years ago. He had left Vermilion Birdstar to avoid Situnan and had come to seek refuge with his old friend, Sword Venerable Ling Tianhou. "Your injuries," Why are they so severe? Sword Venerable Ling Tianhou, with his cultivation, immediately noticed that Greedy Wolf's body was still suffering from unhealed wounds. This matter is difficult to explain in a short time. I went to the Great Luo Sword Sect to find you before, and when I learned you were here, I hurried over. I wanted to present you with a grand opportunity. If we seize this chance, it will be as easy as flipping our hands to suppress the old man of heavenly destiny. Greedy Wolf's eyes glinted with a dark gleam as he spoke slowly. After a moment's hesitation, Greedy Wolf gritted his teeth, raised his head, and fixed his gaze on Sword Venerable Ling Tianhou. He spoke in a soft voice, Sword Venerable, have you heard of the notice issued by the Cultivation Alliance tens of thousands of years ago, seeking a certain item? It's a bead, and they are offering a complete set of top-tier immortal arts as a reward. A complete set of top-tier immortal arts, mind you. This is something the Cultivation Alliance has never done before since its establishment. According to my sources, there are no more than 10 complete sets of top-tier immortal arts in the entire Cultivation Alliance. Ling Tianhou's eyes narrowed, and without showing any emotion, he asked, is your injury related to this bead? Greedy Wolf nodded, forcing a smile as he said, let's not mention the events of the year. My cultivation was insufficient. However, if you, Sword Venerable, make a move, it will certainly be a piece of cake. Sword Venerable Ling Tianhou looked up, his eyes gazing into the void. After a long while, he spoke slowly, as for this matter, we can discuss it after the East Sea Demon Spirit Gate affair is over. But before that, Greedy Wolf, I need you to do something for me. Greedy Wolf's eyes flickered. What is it that Sword Venerable needs me to do? Enter the East Sea Demon Spirit Gate and protect my 12 disciples until they complete the secret task I've arranged for them. If you can do that, I will lend you a hand. Sword Venerable Ling Tianhou said calmly. Greedy Wolf's expression darkened as he waved his sleeve. Ling Tianhou, are you helping me? What do you mean by that? Ling Tianhou turned slightly and glanced at Greedy Wolf with a neutral expression, saying, Greedy Wolf, when I, Ling Tianhou, ruled the starry skies, you hadn't even stepped foot on the cultivation star. Your schemes are as transparent to me as glass. If you hadn't been pressured by the person holding that bead, would you have traveled so far to this destiny star to find me? I fear that if I were to drive you away today, it wouldn't take long before you and I are separated by life and death. Greedy Wolf fell silent. After a while, he smiled faintly and said, Sword Venerable, you overthink things. As long as I, Greedy Wolf, am here, I will definitely protect your disciples. However, I have heard that the East Sea Demon Spirit Gate is quite mysterious. With my current cultivation, I'm unsure whether I can enter. Don't worry about that, Ling Tianhou said indifferently. You're already injured, and since I am the one opening the Demon Spirit Gate, I will naturally ensure that you can enter. Greedy Wolf nodded and said no more. As they conversed, a vast expanse of rainbow-colored clouds slowly approached from the distant starry skies. Greedy Wolf's eyes flickered, and in the blink of an eye, he disappeared from his spot. If one looked closely, they would see that he had transformed into a shadow, closely following Sword Venerable Ling Tianhou, remaining completely still. Before the rainbow-colored clouds even neared, a sense of serenity instantly enveloped the starry sky. Amidst the flashes of rainbow light, Tian Yunzi, dressed in white, stepped through the void, walking toward them. As Tian Yunzi walked, he smiled and nodded at several acquaintances, and behind him followed 9 individuals. These 9 wore different clothes, but each had sharp eyes and substantial cultivation. Among them was the 6th elder of the Purple faction, Xun'er, who once vied for the title of the 7 Children of Heavenly Destiny with Wang Lin. At this moment, Xun'er was dressed in purple, his aura emanating a powerful pressure that echoed around him. He appeared as if he were a sharp sword ready to leave its sheath, its edge exposed. Tian Yunzi and his entourage arrived with calm confidence. The surrounding cultivators, upon seeing them, clasped their fists in greeting and parted to make way. The atmosphere was even more ceremonious than when Sword Venerable Ling Tianhou had arrived. In the blink of an eye, Tian Yunzi and his group reached the East Sea Demon Spirit Gate, just 100 paces from Sword Venerable's position. Around them stood a large number of cultivators, all their eyes fixed on the scene. In addition to these cultivators, many renowned old monsters observed from their positions, looking at Sword Venerable Ling Tianhou and Tian Yunzi with the air of spectators. At this moment, it could be said that nearly every powerful being in the entire Destiny Star and surrounding star realms had gathered here. The East Sea Demon Spirit Gate was the focal point, drawing together the strongest forces of the seven-tiered cultivation nation. The grand event that happens once every 5,000 years was just a day away from unfolding. When the Demon Spirit Gate opens, the awe-inspiring tidal phenomenon that will greet those who see it for the first time will raise this East Sea Demon Spirit journey to unimaginable heights. What follows will be the brutal trial of the realm. Tian Yunzi maintained a calm demeanor. As he stood there, numerous cultivators came to pay their respects, exchanging greetings and light conversation. Amidst this, Tian Yunzi's gaze occasionally flickered around as if he were searching for something. The 9 disciples of Tian Yun's sect who stood behind him also engaged in conversation with acquaintances. Only Xun'er, with a calm expression, occasionally glanced around. Why hasn't he arrived yet? Xun'er's brow furrowed slightly. The last day before the opening of the East Sea Demon Spirit Gate slowly passed by. Today marks the grand beginning of this place's prosperous era, a once-in-5000-year event, the opening of the East Sea. At this moment, the floating void known as the East Sea also began to change. The countless floating objects, which had been still before, now seemed to be moving faster. This change immediately drew the attention of all the cultivators around. Just then, Xun'er's eyes suddenly flashed, and he sharply looked into the distance, a faint smile slowly appearing at the corner of his mouth. In the distance, several long rainbows whistled toward them. Their arrival didn't attract much attention from the surrounding cultivators, but Xun'er's gaze was tightly fixed on one purple figure among them. Old 7. Xun'er's eyes gleamed with a strange light. Tian Yunzi casually glanced toward the purple figure approaching in the distance, giving a slight smile, but not speaking. From a distance, Wang Lin spotted Tian Yunzi and his group. While flying, he cupped his hands towards Sun Yunshan and said, "Brother Sun, I'm heading to my sect now. Let's part here, but if there's a chance, we'll meet again in the East Sea Demon Spirit Land." Sun Yunshan, covered in dust and evidently having rushed all the way here, finally arrived on this last day. Hearing Wang Lin's words, he smiled warmly and said, "After entering, I hope Brother Wang will look out for me. This matter is no trouble at all." Wang Lin smiled faintly, stepped forward, and in the blink of an eye, transformed into a streak of azure mist, heading swiftly toward Tian Yunzi. Wang Lin, now in his purple form, was as fast as lightning. Even before nearing, the sound of rolling thunder echoed from him. His face was calm, but a trace of grayish mist flashed in his eyes, making him appear just as sharp as the hidden Xun'er. His movement immediately drew the attention of several cultivators. When they saw Wang Lin dressed in purple and the purple token hanging from his waist, some well-informed individuals quickly guessed his identity. The 7th elder of the purple faction of the Tian Yun sect, Wang Lin. Yao Shixue, sitting cross-legged on the blood-red jade stone, suddenly opened her eyes. Her gaze instantly landed on Wang Lin, and after a careful look, she withdrew her attention. "My father told me to keep an eye on the new disciples of Tian Yunzi, but I wonder what to make of this person. His cultivation seems ordinary, and there doesn't appear to be anything special about him. However, it's quite surprising that he was personally chosen by Tian Yunzi to enter the East Sea right after joining Tian Yun's sect," Yao Shixue thought to herself. Wang Lin continued forward and soon arrived where Tian Yunzi was standing. He respectfully stood and said plainly, "Disciple Wang Lin, greetings to the master." Tian Yunzi smiled and said, "Stand behind me. Watch carefully during this once-in-5000-years grand event. Perhaps, in the tides, the destiny artifact you seek will soon be revealed." After speaking, Tian Yunzi glanced meaningfully at Wang Lin and fell silent. Wang Lin nodded in agreement, standing behind Tian Yunzi, lined up with the other 9 disciples. The other 9's gazes briefly swept over Wang Lin, and aside from Xun'er, who had a somewhat strange look, none of them showed any particular emotion, as if looking at a stranger. Wang Lin, naturally, didn't pay too much attention to them either. He only glanced briefly and saw that there were 3 women and 6 men in the group. When Sword Venerable Ling Tianhou noticed Wang Lin's arrival, his gaze briefly sharpened. He felt a sense of familiarity, something he had sensed during Tian Yunzi's grand birthday celebration, though he couldn't recall where he had seen him before. "Eh?" A light exclamation came from behind Ling Tianhou, from the direction of Greedy Wolf. Do you know this person? Ling Tianhou whispered. I don't know him, but there's something familiar about him. Perhaps he's related to some old acquaintance. Greedy Wolf, hidden in the shadows, flashed a sharp gleam in his eyes but immediately concealed it. Wang Lin's appearance also caught the attention of several well-known old cultivators nearby. The reason they focused on Wang Lin was simple. Tian Yunzi never casually took in disciples. Every disciple he accepted was because of fate. If it wasn't for destiny, he wouldn't have taken them in. The question remained whether this fate applied to Wang Lin himself or to someone else. At this moment, a series of soft rumbling sounds suddenly echoed from the East Sea, like pebbles being thrown into a calm lake, creating ripples that spread out. At that moment, the gazes of over 10,000 cultivators in the surroundings all focused on the East Sea demon spirit land, on the vast expanse of floating objects. Everything around became eerily quiet. Among the cultivators, some had seen the Once-in-5000-Years tides more than once, but each time, the feeling of awe and shock never diminished, it only grew stronger. Almost every cultivator who had witnessed the tidal phenomenon was certain of one thing in their hearts. This East Sea must have been an incredibly shocking place thousands of years ago. Otherwise, such a breathtaking tidal phenomenon could never have appeared. It was as if everything was a mystery, always shrouding the people of Destiny Star. At this moment, the entire floating sea resembled a volcano on the verge of eruption. Numerous floating objects rolled and churned within it, as if they were ancient souls, buried for countless millennia, struggling to break free from their bonds. The deafening rumble filled the vast, empty starry sky. Its sound so overwhelming that it seemed to echo endlessly in the ears of every cultivator, much like the sound of thunder. Wang Lin's gaze sharpened as he carefully examined the boundless floating sea. This was his first time seeing it, and everything here felt unfamiliar to him. His knowledge of the East Sea demon spirit land came solely from the words of others and from what Sun Yunshan had told him along the way. Even the tidal phenomenon he had only heard of but had no mental image of. A tidal occurrence once every 5,000 years. I must see for myself what's so extraordinary about it. A glint of light flashed in Wang Lin's eyes. At this moment, all eyes were focused on the endless floating sea. The rumbling grew louder and more intense, and eventually, in the very center of the floating sea, a sharp, whistling sound suddenly echoed. This sound was grating to the ears, resembling the cries of ghosts and wolves, but at the moment it appeared, all the floating objects quivered as if some mysterious force was stirring them, causing them to slowly rotate. This rotation was earth-shattering, as though the entire starry sky itself was spinning. Some of the weaker cultivators were involuntarily drawn toward the center, drifting forward as if they were unaware, ready to be pulled into the vortex. If not for their companions holding on to them, they would have carelessly moved forward, ready to merge with the swirling force. Wang Lin remained calm. His heart was steadfast, unaffected by this rotating divine power. He coldly observed the scene without moving a single inch. The floating sea of East Sea demon spirits, with its rotation, emitted an increasingly sharp sound, one that surpassed the booming rumble inside. At the same time, a faint green mist began to spread slowly across the entire floating sea. The moment this mist appeared, it rapidly expanded outward. In the blink of an eye, the entire expanse of the floating sea was enveloped in this green aura. But then, the green mist began to boil wildly, gathering toward the center, as if an invisible force was driving it to condense along with the floating objects. In an instant, the entire starry sky trembled. All the green mist and floating objects converged into one singular entity, forming a strange object resembling a springhead. This springhead didn't remain still. Instead, it continuously gathered from all directions, growing taller and larger, until it almost reached a height of 1,000 zhang. It has begun, soared Venerable Ling Tianhou muttered, a strange gleam flashing in his eyes. This time, I wonder what will be drawn in. Tian Yunzi's gaze was calm, yet a faint seven-colored gleam flickered in his eyes. At this moment, all cultivators who had previously witnessed the East Sea demon spirits awakening focused intently, their eyes as sharp as lightning, fixated on the rising green mist pillar that resembled a springhead. This green mist pillar now seemed to be the sky-supporting arm of the entire starry sky, standing tall within it. Its height extended endlessly, and almost in the blink of an eye, it reached the range that one's divine sense could detect. Wang Lin's expression changed, filled with shock. As the green pillar grew, A pressure more intense than the might of the heavens slowly emanated from it. Just the slight pressure from it caused Wang Lin to feel as if 10,000 mountains were bearing down on him. He could even hear his bones creaking, as though they might collapse at any moment. It's incredibly strong. Wang Lin's eyes flashed with determination. A gray aura flickered on his forehead, transforming into runes that spread across his face and covered his entire body. Only then did the pressure slowly reach its limit. If Wang Lin felt this, the surrounding cultivators fared even worse. Their faces turned pale, and many retreated in fear. Some even nearly collapsed from the overwhelming pressure, only being saved by their elders' timely assistance. At that moment, a scene unfolded before all the cultivators, one they would never forget for the rest of their lives. The massive azure pillar suddenly collapsed with a tremendous roar. Red light beams began flashing continuously from the point of collapse. As soon as the light spread out, it immediately scattered wildly in all directions, even piercing through the bodies of the surrounding cultivators, extending directly into the depths of the starry sky. As the azure pillar continued to break apart, more and more red light erupted violently from within, spreading outward at an unimaginable speed. At this moment, if viewed from a different angle, one could clearly see that, in the eastern part of the Destiny Star, at the East Sea Demon Spirit Gate, one of the 3 forbidden zones, the area was covered by both azure and crimson hues. The azure light was gradually dissipating, replaced by endless crimson radiance. This red was not blood red, but a brilliant, sun-like scarlet. The crimson light emitted in all directions, much like the sun, radiating from the East Sea Demon Spirit Gate as the center, spreading endlessly outward. How far it reached was unknown, except to a few. However, distant barbaric planets far beyond Destiny Star were now enveloped by this red light in the blink of an eye. Even the far-off Vermilion Bird Star, where the Vermilion Bird Patriarch Zhou Wutai was sitting cross-legged in meditation, suddenly opened his eyes. He saw the entire sky of Vermilion Bird Star now bathed in this scarlet light. Even farther away, more planets were being covered by this crimson hue. This crimson radiance, which emanates from the East Sea Demon Spirit Gate every 5,000 years, had extended so far that its reach could no longer be clearly measured. Suddenly, the crimson light stopped spreading, as though it had reached its limit. But in the moment it halted, an earth-shattering transformation occurred across all the areas covered by this light. In the starry sky, on the planets, in the void, and everywhere, all treasures, jade slips, spirit stones, immortal jade, skeletal remains, ancient swords, broken treasures, immortal seals, ancient cultivation artifacts, and all other materials, whether whole or broken, within the range of the crimson light, suddenly began to tremble.